Welcome to Octoberfest in the kitchens of Lincoln High School. Chef Mike with you today. We're going to go through a couple of dishes. They're fast, they're quick, they're easy at home. You shouldn't have a lot of problem doing this. We're going to start with a pork schnitzel today. This can be veal, you can use chicken, you can use any type of make-believe meat if you want. You can do the same process. We're going to work with a standard breading procedure. I'll pull that in here in a second. First thing I want to do is go through the process. Purchase yourself a pork loin. You can use tenderloin, you can use whole pork loin or American chops. You can even buy bone-in pork chops and just cut the meat off the bone. It's all the same cut. If you like it from a smoky bent, you can even use Canadian bacon. What I'm going to do with the pork loin, I've already trimmed off all of the silver skin and the heavy fat, rendered the fat off so we can use that to saute down the road. You're going to cut these about 1/4 of an inch thick, but not all the way through. And then you're going to make a butterfly chop. You can even at your butcher case talk to your butcher and they can cut these for you and have them on the ready. Just call ahead so they got a little time. And then if I do a whole loin, I'll just keep one all the way through, one not all the way through, and I'll end up with these lovely little cutlets. Okay? From there we're going to take a piece of saran wrap. We're going to put our cutlet in the center of that. And we're going to hit it with a mallet. We want to get that as thin as possible. Break up all that muscle fiber in there so you have a very nice tender cutlet. Now we are working with a middle meat already, so we already have a very tender product. But to speed up the cooking process, we want to bang these out to about 1/8 inch thick. If you don't have a mallet at home, you can use the side of a rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin at home, you can use the bottom of a pot. I do purchase myself a little needler. It's called a Jaeger. Tougher meats you can also make this out of. If you were working with something out of the pork shoulder, you can work with that, needle it, and then go through the same process. If you don't have a needler at home and don't want to purchase one, you can always just use your standard dinner fork. All works. The process is to separate the muscle fibers so that you end up with tender. Okay, we'll just go through and mallet these all out. And then I'll pull the standard breading station in. The breading station is comprised of seasoned flour. I use Lowry seasoned salt, granulated garlic, and black pepper in the flour. I got half milk and half eggs for my egg wash. That's the second container. To that I just added salt. A little bit. You don't want to get it all salty. And then I always keep the heel of my breadcrumbs and stuff at home, dinner rolls, whatever I got. Dry those out, run them in my food processor or blender, and I get my breadcrumbs. To that I seasoned it with oregano, sage, leaf thyme, all dehydrated. A little bit of garlic again because I'm kind of a garlic hound. And so we're going to end up with salt components all along. I am going to fry these in bacon oil, so I have the saltiness from the bacon that will also impart. And then I have all this pre-made. So you always want to keep, now you guys pay attention, one hand wet and one hand dry, so you don't end up with these big lumpy fingers. So I took my dry hand, put the cutlet in the egg. Now I take my wet hand, remove the cutlet and the excess. Now I got my dry hand to put the crumbs over it. See the lumps. So, going through this process, try to keep our hands wet. Now if you're doing 4 or 5 cutlets, it's probably not a major. If you're doing 400 or 500 cutlets, unless you want to run to the sink every 10 cutlets, you want to use this process. One hand wet, one hand dry. Then we're going to transition this into a frying pan here in a couple minutes. Now I like to let these rest for a good 10 minutes so that those breadcrumbs all adhere nice. I leave them right in the crumbs, just make layers of, and then the moisture in the pork and the egg are going to pull out and adhere to the crumbs so you get a very nice coat. Last thing you want is a bare spot because then you're going to end up with a burnt spot, so we don't want that. So I'm just going to push this aside again. We'll get into the next process. Now I did use my cutting board for protein. So I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff to my dishwasher. Got a sanitizing water in the back sink ready to go so I can clean all of the proteins off of here before we get into the next process, my friends. Alright. Next thing you want to look at is making our red cabbage. The red cabbage is going to be comprised of, we're going to use sugar, cider vinegar. I got some cranapple juice from the frozen concentrate, some apples, some scallions, some flat leaf parsley. I've already sliced up my onions. And so the key to red cabbage is slicing it as thin as you can, almost like coleslaw. The thinner you cut it, the faster it cooks. So it's basically like shaved lettuce that you put on your taco. You want to get that super thin, super thin, super thin. Now you can do this in the oven. Do it in a Dutch oven and bake it. If you're doing a party in the afternoon, you want to get it out of the way. You can also do it right on your stove top. So, fire this up. I pre-rendered some bacon off here. We're going to put our bacon oil in there. Everybody's afraid to eat bacon oil, but I'll tell you a little secret about bacon. You pay $6 a pound for it at the store. You cook 50% of it away. If you use that bacon oil for your omelet, you get the flavor, you get all those components. It keeps in the refrigerator. It is saturated fat. Eat it in minimal amounts, but it has a great flavor, and now your bacon stays at $6 a pound if you can figure out how to use your bacon oil. Okay? Now you won't hear that in the wellness program, but from the flavor profile program and from the old world, when we used everything in the hog from, what did we say, the snout to the tail, everything except the oink works out well. Okay? We're going to give that a little saute. While this gets hot and happy, I'm going to make a sweet and sour sauce in back for some German potato salad. It's my great-grandmother's recipe. It's very simple. Render off some bacon. If you want to put onions in it, great. In fact, I'm going to take half of these in there. Equal parts of white wine or white vinegar and sugar. Bring that to a boil. Thicken it with a touch of cornstarch. And it works great for hot bacon on spinach. You want to use it on your potatoes, anything like that. Today we're using red skin potatoes. So I got my bacon grease going. I got my bacon nice and crisp. I'm frying off them onions till they caramelize nice and brown. And then I'm going to add my sugar to it. Caramelize that sugar. Then I'm going to add my vinegar to it. I'm going to use a cup of each today. And then I'm going to thicken that up with a little cornstarch, and that'll be our dressing. Now once these are nice and caramelized, we're going to add our cabbage. And now this just goes fast. Throw in your cabbage. You can throw in the apples however you like. I'm going to chop mine a bit. I've already cleaned them up. You can peel them, you don't have to peel them. If you don't have fresh, you can use frozen. If you don't have frozen, you can use apple pie filling. All of it works. It's just a matter of your taste and what you like. We're going to put those in. Cabbage. If those apples were not pre-cooked, I would have thrown them in before with the onions. And now we're just going to deglaze that. Sugar. Cran apple juice. You can use any kind of apple juice concentrate. Oops, made a mess, sorry. Splash of vinegar. Alright, and we're just going to let that cook down. You can edit that out. And we just let that get happy. We'll put her back on the stove. We'll get into the next application. All right, a little bit of green onion for freshness. We're going to let that cook. One cup of sugar. 1 cup of white vinegar. Come to a boil. Alright, so we're going to get into that pork cutlet now. She's been sitting for about 5-6 minutes. I keep all my bacon oil, like I said. Flavor is imparted. You can get your salty component from that. We want to get this good and hot. We're doing a saute right here. And then all we're going to do is brown each side of those cutlets. I'm going to transfer them to a baking sheet in the oven and let them finish off, and that'll be it for that. Okay? And then we'll get ready for our sauce. Sauce is going to be comprised of a heavy cream reduction, Put her in the pan, cook her down, saute the mushrooms off in a little bit of butter. And then if I had any type of beer or wine or something I wanted to reduce with that, I could. Unfortunately, I can't use that here in the school. Excuse me. And then I'm going to hit it with a little bit of pork stock, and then you're going to end up with a very nice flavor profile. In the spring, we butchered up a half a hog in class. So we took all the bones, we took all the renderings, and we all turned that into a secondary product. We rendered off the lard, we reduced out the cracklings, and we used those for cookies. And then all of the pork stock I froze in 1 quart container, so I have that through the rest of the next school year. You can do that at home too. Any kind of bone can be turned into a stock. Look up any recipe online, good to go. So, what we're going to do is get these nice and brown. You don't have to cook this super hot. You don't want to end up with smoke and a burnt flavor. Nice gentle saute till golden brown. You can start seeing the edges getting brown, then it's time to flip. You get the other side brown, you can fold them in the oven or finish them depending on how far you cook them in the frying pan. Okay? Then we'll get our sauce ready. So we're going to put in this pan a little butter. Get that melted down. If you don't like butter, you can use the bacon oil again. If you don't like that, you can use olive oil. Any type of fat will work. I just like the delicate flavor of butter to go with my mushrooms. My counter is all sanitized already. So we'll just keep flipping this stuff around. And then we'll do the Spaetzel. And then we're done. The Spaetzel is just a simple dumpling, eggs, milk. I usually use equal portions, a pinch of salt, a dash of nutmeg if you like. Scramble that all together, and then you're going to add flour until that forms kind of a sticky dough. Then you're going to run that through a Spaetzel maker, maybe a colander. You can do it off the side of a board to make dumplings for your chicken dumpling soup. Straight into a pot of boiling salt water, cook them until they're tender, and then after they come out, you got a dumpling. You can take those same dumplings in and you can fry them, again, in butter, grease, whatever you want. Today I'm going to toss them around a little bit of butter and grease just so I get the flavor profiles again. And then, we're going to put this all together on a plate. So we're going to have nice buttered fried Spaetzel with the pork cutlet, Schnitzel, with the red cabbage. And I made some German potato salad, I'm working on that, and then we're going to finish that off with a little bit of Bavarian sauerkraut. My sauerkraut recipe, you can use any kraut, you can make your own. You can purchase commercial, doesn't matter. If you purchase commercial, add a little bit of brown sugar to your jus that is on your kraut, and a pinch of caraway, and a pinch of salt. You can even fry some onions in that. You're in a good spot. So our butter's melted. Getting all frothy and bubbly. Now there is a thing called a brunoise. You can cook that butter until it turns nice and brown. Gives you a very nutty, very hazelnut flavor, which is good for the old country meals. Alright? All you're doing is taking the natural whey that's in that butter. Clarified butter will brown that up. And then you end up with a nice end product. Gets all frothy and brown. Throw in your mushrooms. The water from the mushrooms will stop the browning process. So I pre-sliced these cremini mushrooms earlier today. We're going to drop them right in there. Give them a little toss. Alright. To that I'm going to add some flat leaf chopped parsley. Just to get that green herbage in there for flavor. I'm going to use about a half a cup of heavy whipping cream. We're going to let that reduce by half. We evaporate out all of that moisture from the cream, from the mushrooms. Concentrates the flavors. Then I'm going to add a little pork jus to this. If it tends to be a little on the thin side, I can hit that with a little cornstarch or make a quick roux. That's fine. If not, we just let her get happy together. And that takes all but a minute. Now, if you wanted to flavor this with whatever you like, you want to put nutmeg in there, do that beer reduction I talked about earlier. Throw in there some red wine if that's what you like. Cook all your liquors down to a quarter volume. Evaporate out all that moisture again. Concentrate those flavors. You end up with a very, very nice flavor profile in your product. I would like to have an NA or a regular beer in here, a nice ale, cook that down nice and, oh, that'd be awful tasty. Over here is our pork stock. I usually use equal parts stock to my cream. And we're just going to let that reduce on the back burner, and it looks like something like this. Now if you wanted to put sage in there, you wanted to put in some thyme, you got some fresh herbs, some fresh chopped parsley, chives, anything you prefer, garlic if you like, you can do all of that in your sauce. Now we just let it reduce. Alright, I'm going to make a little whitewash here. Whitewash is simply cornstarch and water. And this is what we're going to thicken our German potato salad up with, and then we can finish this with the Spaetzel. So what you do is you get all the lumps worked out of this, and that's why you dissolve it in the cold water. If you do this with hot water, you end up with a lumpy sauce. We're going to put that right into our hot bacon dressing. And then we're going to get ready for our Spaetzel. So here's our salted water. We're going to take our eggs, milk, garlic. Again, if you want to put a little parsley in there, that's groovy. You can do that. And usually you're going to use about 2 parts of flour to 1 part of moisture to get your dumpling. But that's a ballpark. Flour has different absorption rates depending on the type of flour you use. Even within all-purpose flours, every company's got a different main grain that they use to grind, if you would. Now, if you don't have one of these toys, you can use a colander. Run it through just your standard basic colander. If you don't have a colander, you can do what I'm going to do here with a spoon. So now I just take my dumplings. Thank you, sirs. Simple, anything with perforation in it. You got a hotel pan at home. I don't know if many of you do. Some of you make syrup in that. You might have one with holes in it. All you got to do is run the dumpling through the holes. I'm doing it the old world way, just scraping it off with a spoon. You do this in chicken stock, you can cook this in wine, you can cook this in juice. All depends what flavor profiles you want to demonstrate into that dumpling. Again, this is just flour, egg, milk, salt, pepper. Put a little parsley in. If you like dill, put some dill in your dumplings. If you like scallions, chives, shallots, onions, work that into your dumpling. You can change the flavor of your dumplings as you go along. Not a problem. Then you take these out and fry them up in some butter. Then you sit down and you have a little piece of heaven. So I'm looking at you, this is Chef Mike. You guys have the best day ever.